time. Hello and welcome to Into the Liminal Abyss Paranormal Podcast. I am your show host, Shetan Noir, and on today's show, we actually have a location-specific guest. He has done lots of investigating over the years at this location, so I am going to introduce him. Please welcome to the show, Mr. John Worley, and what is your background and how did you become interested in the paranormal?
Well, I think that, first of all, thank you for welcoming me. I really, all my life, have been involved with the paranormal. It started when I was like about 5. And I remember distinctly laying in bed, and my bed was up against the wall. So if I laid one way, I would stare at the wall. And I would stare at the wall, and one night there was like a black shadow that kind of morphed into something not pleasant, and I couldn't look away. And so I didn't know much about God, but I invoked his name, and I just said, God, help me. And then I was able to move. That kind of stuff happened throughout my teenage years. When I went to college, my girlfriend at the time monkeyed around with the Ouija board, and we were fast and furious with our romance, and it lasted like 3 months. And toward the end, when we weren't getting along, she called and said, would you please stay overnight? And I'm thinking, that's weird, because we're not getting along well. So I asked her why, and she said, well, the bed is shaking.
Oh.
And, right? So I said, okay, I'll be glad to do that. So I went over, and nothing happened then. And, slept like a baby. However, then, like the next day, when I'm in her room with her, the feel of the room changed. And I had been around the paranormal enough by this time that I could sense good and I could sense negative. And this was negative. And I thought I saw something in the corner of my eye, so I quickly turned my head. And on her dorm room door knob was a hanger. And on the hanger was a shirt. And I saw the shirt. It didn't fall off the hanger. It was jerked. And I saw the violence of it, which surprised me. But, I could feel something in the room anyway. So I sat down on her bed, and I'm talking with her. She's sitting on the bed, too. And I'm looking past her. And I literally see her record player turn on by itself. The needle picks up and goes into the middle of the record and starts playing. And I said, is that supposed to happen? She said, no, I can't do that. But it did. So that got me, I think the paranormal is kind of like a drug. We'll say alcohol. The first time you get drunk, you remember that. And
Right.
then say that you're not a drinker. 10 years go by and you say, I kind of remember what that was like. I'm going to do it again. And then you do it again and you go, oh, yeah, that's what I remember. So that leads into the Villisca thing. I go over to my friend's house, and this has been years since I've had a paranormal experience. And we're just having a good time. I make wine, so I took some wine over. We're enjoying the company. There were 6 of us there. And we get to comparing bucket lists. And 3 of us there had the same thing. We live in Iowa, in a small town. Well, in southwest Iowa, in 1912, in the town of Villisca, there was an unsolved murder. Actually, 8 of them. A family went to church, and on the way back from church, they picked up 2 neighbor kids who were walking home too that wanted to stay overnight. So they went home, they had some cookies and milk, and they went to bed. And that was the last that people know of them being alive. In the middle of the night, somebody came out with an axe and went systematically killing each one in their bed. So we had heard the story. It was very famous in Iowa. In fact, at that time, it was, I believe it pushed off the Titanic from some of the papers because it was hey, this didn't happen. But it did. So we're talking about going to Villisca because all three of us had been watching paranormal shows. You know how they investigate using the equipment and they talk to ghosts, right?
Yes.
So we decided, why don't we pull all our money, buy the equipment, and go and investigate this house, because by now there had been enough rumors that this was a haunted location, actual stories, and we had heard the stories. So we signed up, and it's really spendy to stay overnight. Guess how much it costs?
Oh, I'm going to guess for an overnight investigation, probably $500.
Oh, man, you're pretty close. Yeah, it was like $429.
Oh, wow.
Now, for one night, that's a lot of money. You know, like, who wants to go fishing and catch no fish?
Right.
So we thought, okay, we'll do it. This is a one-time thing. Let's go there and be as scientific as we can and prove the house really isn't haunted and it's just rumors. Now, check this out. 6 months before we go, and we're already booked and everything. We're paid, locked in. We hear this story of this guy who goes to the house and he gets separated from his group and he gets stabbed and they call 911. Now, I'm thinking, okay, what's wrong with this guy? Why would he stab himself in this house? That's kind of weird. So, anyway, that's a little backstory. We don't think about it anymore. So we go, and within 15 minutes of taking over the house in daylight, they literally handed the keys and they say, have fun, drop the key off when you're done in the morning. I'm setting up equipment. Upstairs in one of the rooms is where the children, there are 4 children that belong to Joe and Sarah Moore. It was their room, and I'm setting up camera equipment, and I'm sitting on the bed. They have a closet in their room that is known, and I've seen on YouTube where you talk to the children, they'll open the door, and they'll close the door. I mean, that's the thing. So one of the investigators on my team immediately goes to the closet, closes the closet door, and I'm thinking, wow, that's some cojones there. I don't know if I would do that, but, we're doing it scientifically. So she sat down on the floor. She had her EMF detector, and I can hear this as I'm setting up the equipment, even though I can't see her. And she says, if you would like me to leave, please make this meter go all the way up to red. Boom, boom, just like that. It shot up to red, and she comes bounding out of the door, hysterical. Not in fear, per se, but the adrenaline.
Yeah.
Like, she couldn't believe this actually happened. I didn't see it, but I saw my friend. She went back because I said to her, okay, I didn't see this, so how about you go sit in the doorway of the closet with the door open? And as I'm fiddling with my equipment, I'm watching her talk to a child. And she was asking questions with the EMF meter and getting hits on it. It was like, wow, that is not what we had anticipated. We thought, if we got activity, it would be, one thing here, that kind of thing. We actually got a lot of activity. Some people, when they investigate, and I'm going to pick on my friend Adam Berry and Amy Bruni from Kindred Spirits. when they investigate, they'll go into a location with a recorder, turn on the recorder, ask a question, then pause to allow time for an answer,
Right.
and then rewind it. And then listen to see, well, we didn't do that. We had recorders going constantly, and we had video going constantly. And I had a ghost meter, one of those kind that will sound off as well as register, and the light goes off.
Right.
I have on audio. It's really cool. I have on audio, they ask the question, do you love your mom, to the kids? And it immediately goes off, bells and everything. I didn't have it on video, sadly, but I have it on audio. We got Class A EVPs, and we just had so much that I collated it together and put it on YouTube, just the evidence, and it's a half hour long. So you go, wow. And at the end of the day, we walked away knowing this was legitimate. And then we thought, well, you know what? We had so much activity, the money paid for itself. Let's do this again. So a couple of years later, we had it all booked. We went back there again. And this time around was a little different. The first time around, certainly we talked to the children and we talked to the killer. When the killer came out, the whole feel of the house changed. We were able to experience the funhouse effect of being like in an airplane going up and down, your ears popping, headaches. I didn't have any headaches. And I should say, and I apologize for not doing this earlier, the children in the house had absolutely no problem interacting with any of the investigators but me. I was the only guy. The other ones were all mothers of little children. So they got along famously.
Right.
And what's funny is when you listen back to the recordings, we got audio of the children talking. I remember feeling bad because they weren't interacting with me. My friends are having great conversations. What's wrong with me? And so I just said, I wonder if it's okay if I'm even sitting on their bed. And one of the girl investigators asked a question, is it okay if John sits on your bed? And there's an audio reply of a little girl saying, please get off my bed. It's like, wow, okay. So they were shy around me, and that's okay. The killer had no problem. He was boisterous on the meter. We asked things like, are you tied to the house? He said he was. Are you remorseful for what you did? He indicated that he was, but he's honestly a lawyer, so it's hard to, he just likes the attention and the drama. So
Right.
Anyway, even back to the second time we went. Second time, same thing, recordings are going to just run. When we're there, and this is still amazes me, we go to the attic about 5 o'clock, and we're making contact with who we believe to be Catherine, which is a little girl that was murdered there. And she's indicating through the meter that she's lonely. So the other investigators, all being moms, said, well, nobody deserves to be alone. Would you like to hold my hand? And it's like, what? I'm thinking, what? Blow my mind. And she indicated she wanted to. So my friend held out her hand. Claims she felt it. And that amazed me. So naturally, the other investigator wanted to try. And she claims she felt it. Wouldn't hold my hand, And that goes into, if it was one of the kids, I get it, because they didn't want anything to do with me before. I must state that the documentation that I was able to collect, there's more than one bad person in that house. either just the killer and an accomplice, or the killer and one of the kids help it. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's just more than one person. I have documentation of broken whispers between two people when we're upstairs investigating. It's downstairs. They are talking. Remember I had mentioned that one guy that got stabbed?
Yes.
Come to find out, his name is Buck. And he, in the paranormal community, he's like a myth. You know, it's like, whatever happened to this guy? Did this really happen? Well, I found out it did. And that's leading into my other story with kindred spirits. So we go to Villisca. Bottom line is, I get threatened there. And how are we doing for time? We okay?
Oh, we're doing fine for time.
Okay, good. So, let me back up a little bit. Second time we're there, after we have the communication with who we believe to be Catherine, we go outside, and it's about 10 o'clock. Now, 10 o'clock is roughly the time frame they think the killer may have murdered people. Learn the lesson that night. Never tell your friends you're going to investigate a place and when and where. Unbeknownst to my friend or I, we got pranked. Not cool. You don't do that if you're trying to be scientific.
Right.
So to set this up, we're in the barn. The barn is a place of relaxation, of recharging your batteries, your literal batteries for your equipment. Grab a snack. My friend has a nice nighttime camera, so she decides she's going to go outside and take some pictures. So she does. But before she goes out, she lays her phone down on the counter, and when she comes back in, she picks it up and there's a message. She listens to it, and then she says, "Hey, guys, are you pranking me?" We had no idea what she was talking about. So she played it out loud. And it was a creepy guy's voice saying, "Get out of my house." Now, she immediately got teary-eyed. So did my other friend. And they're not in on this. I'm not in on this. So I'm thinking, is this real? And they were able to rationalize it better than I was. And so they dismissed it as being a hoax relatively soon. But they put the hoax on the tour guide. Well, I know the tour guide would never do that because that would ruin his reputation. I know the guy.
Right.
So I knew it wasn't him. So if they didn't have any other suspects, I'm thinking, okay, this could be real. And immediately I turn into Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. Yeah, truly. Now it's 10 o'clock, and I'm sure that you know this. When you're doing a paranormal investigation, you have to be clinical, you have to be strong. Don't go into it with deep emotion. Well, I went into the house terrified because, hey, somebody just told us to get out of their house. And sadly, going into that house being terrified, the killer just feeds on that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So he picked me out to mess with me, and I didn't even know it until we got home. But by that time, it didn't matter because I was freaked out, and we had made a pact. Good thing we did. Nobody leaves anybody alone. And we didn't. When we got back, and I'm listening to all the recordings, there is a recording that my friends caught. I didn't even get that far yet, and they called me up and said, "Listen, you need to sit down and listen to this. And brace yourself." Like, what? And there was an EVP that plainly says, "Just kill John Worley." That's me.
Ooh.
Who's the ghost saying it to? You don't talk in third person,
Right.
To yourself. Now, I want to fast forward a little bit to kindred spirits. And the gentleman by the name of Buck, who I mentioned earlier, that got stabbed. Well, they found him, and they asked if he would go back to the house as well. Keep that in mind because we'll get there, I promise.
Okay.
So after we find out that I'm threatened, I'm just floored and I'm thinking, okay, good thing I dodged that bullet. But then shortly, I would say a month or two, my brother-in-law goes to the ICU in a coma and dies. Coincidence, no biggie. It happens. Not too long after that, my brother goes to the ICU in a coma, almost dies. Comes out of it, but he's disabled now. Now, first time, coincidence. Second time, well, that's weird. Still coincidence. Shortly thereafter, my mother had a tremendously bad bleeding ulcer, had to be rushed to the hospital, and my dad had a stroke that night. Now I'm starting to have the wheels turn a little bit. It's like, okay, I'm threatened in this house. Is somebody trying to get to me through my family? And I'm getting drained. I work at a hospital, I walk by elevators, they open up, nobody's there. So, all coincidental, but the mind starts to think. So, I was drained and getting drained more and more. It finally came to the point that shortly thereafter, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer and died 6 weeks later. And I said to myself, that's it. I'm done. I'm out. It can't get any worse than this. I look up and my roof is leaking. It's like, okay, I need help. I've got to know. Did I bring something back with me? Is this really something that's missing with my family? So I am not apologetic whatsoever. I blitzed Amy Bruni and Adam Berry with Facebook messages. I need your help. I sent the EDP. I got a message from Amy within like a half hour. And then I got contacted by their producer of Kindred Spirits, which airs on the Travel Channel.
Yes.
They asked, would I go back to the house? And I thought about it, and it's like, okay, I trust you guys. That's why I contacted you. If you say I'm safe, keep me safe, I'll go back. But here's what I want. If you would be kind enough, I would like to have a demonologist, Chip Coffey, who is a medium, and certainly a medium that is well known, and he's good.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a real medium. And I need your help. Did I bring something home? So we had me go in December. We went, this then season 3. By the way, if you want to watch it, it's season 3 of Kindred Spirits on the Travel Channel, episode 9, the Villisca Axe Murder House.
Okay.
The Villisca Axe Murders. So they investigate the house. They did not get as much activity as we did. But we ended up filming enough, certainly to have a 2-hour show. But they have to condense it down to 44 minutes. So there's stuff that happened that people don't know. They actually talked to the children, found out the children come and go. It's their home. They like it there. Outside of a bad experience, it's still their home.
Right.
People bring in toys, to play with every night. So they go and they play with the toys. I wish this part would have made it, but it didn't. On the reveal, I learned 2 things. One, they found Buck, and they brought him back to the house. and they interviewed him beforehand, and he shared his story. And what happened with Buck is a much more fascinating and scarier story than what happened to me. Buck went with his parents, and he was by himself. He recreated the crime scene, and he didn't have an axe, so he took a hunting knife and he laid it on his chest, and he laid across the bed.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, right? So he starts talking to the killer, and he's not getting anything. So he starts cussing him out, just really letting him have it. And he looks over and he sees an orb, and the orb grows and grows, and he blacks out. And when he wakes up, he's got a knife sticking out of his lung. And there was an EVP. Sadly, they don't have it anymore. I wish they would have, because I would have loved to hear it. But the EVP said, "Don't worry about Buck. We'll take care of him." Now, here again is indication to me, there's two or more. You know, don't worry about Buck. We will take care of him. And then he gets stabbed. And he says he didn't do it himself. So they play for Buck. And this is on the show, this part is. So is that story. They play for him the EVP that I got. And it concerned me, or made me feel vindicated, certainly, but at the same time startled. That was the same voice that was on his, and then he got stabbed. So I have no doubt in my mind. It's a good thing I wasn't left alone in the house. So who knows? In the big scheme of things, if you have never drank alcohol and you get drunk, and 10 years later you say, well, that wasn't so bad, but you had a bad experience the first time, chances are, don't play with fire. So at the end of Kindred Spirits, Amy Gurney sums it up very, very well. Not every spirit is a kindred spirit. And the killer is in the house. This, I wish, would have made the second thing that we discussed. It did not make it on air in the reveal. Not only did they find Buck, and I was like, what? You found him? And you got him to come back? But Amy said, we go into people's homes all the time, and we tell them, you were safe in your home. But we can't say that in this house. So I highly recommend that you watch the episode for, I can't talk about it like they can do it, on television.
Right.
But they talked to the killer. Amy was tipped off, rightfully so, because he was swearing at her. Adam was pretty brave. He posted himself outside the attic door and created an atmosphere where he was starting to feel fear like I did, and then stuff started happening. As near as I can tell, and as near as they have said, that house is weird in that if you go into the house expecting something, you might get, chances are you're going to get it. If you go in thinking there's a killer there, he'll come out, to play, so to speak. Certainly, if there's any, if in Buck's case, he had the emotion of anger and cussing, making the entity mad.
Right.
That was a big no-no. I went in very afraid. That's a no-no because it just like sniffs the air and goes, oh, okay, cool. Another one. People go to the house to recap the house. They are investigated almost every day. So think of the paranormal energy that people are putting into the house.
Oh, yeah.
Their energy. And then they're feeding him. He loves that. The killer does. Chip Coffey was able to let me talk to my mom, my mother-in-law who passed, and my brother-in-law who passed. And let me tell you, straight up, absolutely my relatives. And this did not make on air, and it was very heartfelt and personal. But Chip gave me part of, in that reading, it went on, and I was able to talk to my mom, who passed away when I was 18. So what I can say about my friends, they are family to me. They answered the call. They came and they helped. They did everything I hoped that they would, and I walked away with a peace of mind and peace of heart. I did not bring anything home. It was coincident, albeit a crappy-ass year
Yeah.
that nobody, should ever have. And I did get threatened. There's no doubt about that. And the killer is in the house. So be careful. Don't be poking around if you're not strong, if you're not mentally prepared, and if you find yourself losing it and getting afraid, take yourself out. Just take yourself out of the investigation, let other people do it. It doesn't matter how much money that you pay. It's not a game, is what I would say. Now,
Yeah.
I've talked a long time, and thanks for letting me share, but do you have any questions?
Oh, sure. Now, were they ever able to identify who the killer actually was? I know that there's been some suggestions over the years, but to this day, do they know who the killer is or was?
No. They certainly, there was a Reverend Kelly was a guy's name who admitted to doing it, but then he recanted. So to this day, it's an unsolved crime. Based on the evidence that I've collected, I believe it was more than one. Certainly, in that house now, there's more than one. I can't picture the children. Children have nothing to do with this guy. That's what they found out, Amy and Adam, when they talked to him. So that's cool. And they're safe and they're happy, and that's cool. But I want to know who the other person was in that house. I keep going back to what Buck had happened to him, and the broken whispers of two people talking. So it's just one of those things that, here again, like a drug, the paranormal says, why don't you go back to Villisca again and see if you can get more answers? Nope. No thinking.
Now, so I'm guessing because
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm guessing because they never found who the killer was. They also have no idea what the motive was.
Exactly. Reverend Kelly was crazy. He was also a pervert. He was a window peeker. He wrote to teenage girls to try to get them to be a secretary, and he wanted them to type in the nude. So the guy was really messed up that way. He says in his statement that he was preparing a sermon. And by the way, the church that the family went to still stands. And you can go and stand right in front of it and get a picture, So historically speaking, it's a very fascinating town, very fascinating house. And you can trace, the way the killer may have went. But anyway, I digress. What was I discussing there?
How the Reverend was a pervert.
The statement, yes. He said he was preparing a sermon on slaying utterly, and he heard a voice that says, "Go slay utterly." And then he said that he was walking, and he saw a shadow, and he followed the shadow to the house. And then he picked up the axe from outside and went inside and did his deed. Now, they have found cigarette butts in the attic when they were after, the murders, or the suspect more than likely hit, which makes sense because the attic is on the second floor, and it's between the children's room and the parents' room. To get to the attic, you go through the parents' closet, and it opens up right into the attic. I had no doubt that, and Chip Coffey, the medium, had found out on the show, when he's up there, the killer is there, and that he knew what he was doing, he knew what he was going to do, and he had planned it, and he was going to wait there all day if he had to. So the guy was definitely sick. So that leads me back to the suspect of maybe it was Reverend Kelly. Ironically, the other suspect was a senator, Senator Fernando Jones, I believe was his last name. And everybody had invested their time that this guy, Senator Jones, was the killer. He was a rival of Joe Moore, the gentleman that got killed. Joe Moore used to work for the senator in his store downtown. And by the way, little footnote, the store downtown, you can still go down there and look into the store and see it's all like caved in and stuff, but the roof or the ceiling tiles are still there. And you can look at a picture from 1912 and look at there, and there they are. But anyway, I digress. So, Joe Moore used to work for him, but he decided he would branch off and have his own business. And he took the John Deere implement dealer part with him. So it is said that they would not even cross the street together. You know, like if one was on one side, the other one would go the opposite direction. They didn't talk. And so they had this inspector come from Pinkerton's, and he was dead set. It was a senator, and he kind of tried to make evidence to show that it was this guy. So everybody was saying it was this guy, to include the two girls that stayed overnight. Their father believed that it was the senator. So he took some of his money and he gave it to the defense of the Reverend Kelly. That's crazy. So literally there's pictures of him standing with the Reverend, the suspect. So there's enough documented, circumstantial evidence, plus what Reverend Kelly said. If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
Right.
So I think he did it. But long answer, nobody's been found.
And that's it's sad because if they still had some of the DNA evidence, they might be able to actually process it to this day and figure out who the killer was.
Right. The day the murder was discovered, the next door neighbor lady went to the house. She knew something was up because they had chickens and nobody had, gotten up early to feed them and stuff like that. All the curtains were drawn. So she contacted Joe's brother, I believe it was. He came to the house, opened it up, saw what was inside was, I believe the room that he went to first was the neighbor girls, and backed out, and then contacted the authorities. Well, small town Iowa back then didn't lock their doors.
Right.
And fingerprinting was a new thing. So by the time the town marshals started to crack down, all the townfolk had already been in the house.
Oh my
trampled
goodness.
through the evidence. They were stealing things. Can you believe that?
Ugh.
They literally took a piece of Joe Moore's skull.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So stuff like that. There were so many people. There's a porch, that like if you could picture an old time house with a porch. The porch was so full of people who were enthused about this killing, and they wanted to go through the house. So many people were on that porch, they were falling off.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so there was no way to, any evidence was trampled over, and it's sad. But that's the way it was back then.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad to think that, these murders are no, they'll never see justice. That nobody will ever be, convicted of the murders, just because of a lack of scientific, approach, and also the fact that people had trampled the site so bad that everybody's DNA and fingerprints were probably all over the place.
Yeah. Ironically, if you go to the cemetery, which I've done, and you can go and see where the Moore family is buried, not too far from them, within a rock's distance, is one of the suspects, the senator. And I was looking all over for his tombstone, the senator, and I'm looking for this big, he's a senator, but it's actually a small one. The town marshal, you can find the key players in the trial, and there was a trial against the senator, and he was acquitted, but the key people in this time period and in this trial, they're all out there. It's pretty interesting to walk through the cemetery. Ooh, that's so-and-so. Historically speaking, the buildings, the outside of the buildings, and some of them are still there. The store, Jones's store, is there, as I said, and it is fascinating there's a book. Can I plug a book?
Sure.
It's a very good, thorough book called Villisca, The True Account of a Mass Murder. It's put out by, the author is Roy Marshall, and you can buy this book at the Villisca Axe Murder House. When you go there, they actually have in the barn area, like a little souvenir thing. I even bought, the first time I went, I got a shirt that has the family's picture overlaid on the house. And on the back it says, I survived Villisca. Well, in my case, I did, They also have a binder in the barn of everybody that has experiences can write, like a letter of their experiences and put it in the binder. And that's fascinating. So many people go through there. Some people get scratched. Some people, the tour guide, one of them, they've got another tour guide, told me that the barn is now getting activity. And she was walking through the barn, and a little boy whispered in her ear. It's not surprising. The whole place is so full of energy. And I should state, and maybe this is why we got so much activity. I bought this piece of equipment. I forget what it's called, but it throws EMF, or throws energy up. That's its job. You put it in a room, turn it on for like a half hour, and move it to a different room. So maybe I helped us get the energy necessary for the spirits to interact.
Oh, yes, that's a possibility.
Yeah. But when you go there, and would I recommend, I don't know. That's a tough one. Historically, it's cool. If you go there from that angle, yeah. If you're a thrill seeker, wanting to provoke and see. People go in there and they try silly things, and some of them get scratched during day tours. This one person was by the attic, and I think it was, I don't want to be misleading, but I believe it was like a pastor, and they said they didn't believe in it, and they got pushed. Stuff like that happens. If you were to call Villisca, they could tell you all this stuff. They have made a movie, and it was a crappy movie, but actually they made more than one. One of them was actually filmed in the house. It wasn't a very good movie either, but what's cool is the owner of the house, before he passed away, both he and his wife were in the movie as themselves. So I think Villisca is a very much of an enigma that will be a mystery and a fascinating one that draws people back. Adam and Amy in the television series Kindred Spirits have said in a live feed, sometimes they will go on Facebook and they will have live feeds kind of a thing.
Yes.
They want to go back to Villisca and do things their way, and I would love to see that. I wouldn't mind being a part of it, but I seriously don't even think that's a consideration because they're doing their thing, and they don't need a tag along, and they certainly don't need an amateur. They're the real deal.
Yeah, but not to take away from them, but you're the one who had the actual experiences there at the house. So to me, you're just as legitimate as any other paranormal investigator out there because you went in with a scientific approach to find evidence of the paranormal, and you definitely received it.
Thanks. Yeah, I did. I mean, realistically, yes, I was a paranormal investigator. Adam had suggested on wrap-up day that I needed to get back on the horse and to investigate again so that it would become that bad experience. And I have since done that to, like get back on the bicycle. It came back easy. I found myself in a darkened area, and instead of being afraid, I walked toward the darker area asking questions. So it was a real privilege for me to have them review my audio tapes and tell me that I did a good job as an investigator. So that was encouraging, and I have done some investigating. I would love, where are you located?
I'm actually in Michigan, but I do paranormal travel writing because I am also the managing writer for 4 different magazines. 2 are cryptozoology based. One is paranormal high strangeness, and then the other one is UFO related. So I do what I call as paranormal travel writing. And if anybody just heard that snort, I apologize. My mastiff, she likes to add herself to podcast interviews. So that's the snort that you just heard. Sometimes I get, if I'm interviewing somebody and they're in a paranormal location, we get weird activity where the phone call drops or the voices fuzz in and out or they hear things. But that was actually my mastiff doing her schnuffle snort towards the phone. So I apologize to anybody who heard that. But getting back to, so I do paranormal travel writing, and I go around to different locations, and I do my photography of the location. I write down any experiences that I've had, and usually what the backstory and the history of the location is. My thing is, I won't write about a location unless I've actually been there, because I want to make sure that it's not a hoax, that people are not going to put into a dangerous situation, so that because I feel like that's my responsibility as a as a travel journalist is to make sure that the location is actually what people are claiming, and not, some hoax that has been put on the internet. So I do go all over. I right now I'm just I'm kind of chomping at the bit for the travel bans to be lifted, so I can actually go to the different events that I'm presenting at, and also do some travel writing and get that all done.
Well, that's pretty fascinating stuff. Now, I live, I can't say this is on my bucket list because I have everything crossed off on my bucket list. And I'm really happy about that. But if I were to add one thing for investigation, just for fun, I would like to investigate the Clear Lake, Iowa surf ballroom and the crash site of Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper.
Oh, okay. Okay, that would be interesting.
Have you ever heard of that?
I have, and I know that that is where they died, but I have not been to that location. So that would be an interesting one to do.
It is cool. It's about 45 miles from here, and I've been there. And the phone that Buddy Holly called on before he left the surf ballroom is still on the wall. Has a little plaque on there. Again, historically fascinating place. Is it haunted? I don't know. It'd be kind of cool to find out. I know that the crash site has been investigated. It is in some haunted books. Like you can pick up a book and says, okay, in Iowa, these are the haunted locations.
Yep, I've seen those books.
I don't know what they get for activity, if much at all. But you don't have to go to a famous place. There's so many just local places that you could document. It's fascinating.
Yeah,
growing up, the way I did, being around the paranormal, it was, for me, like being away from it and remembering what it was like and wanting to see if you could do it again. Kind of like going back to that getting drunk.
Right.
And am I glad I did it again? That's a tough one because historically, and I mean, I documented a lot. The team that I had been a member of did a fantastic job, and we can all be proud of that. We did what we set out to do. But it caused me a year of heartache, not because of it, but because of all the crappy stuff that happened in my life. It was coincidental, but it played on my mind. So, still would do it. I don't have a desire to go back to Villisca. Not really. I would go back under the right circumstances, but been there, done that. I know who's there. There's nothing to prove.
Yeah, I think, I would probably want to take pictures of the Villisca Axe Murder House, and probably just do a quick walkthrough and take pictures of the different rooms. But I don't know if I would want to subject myself to interacting with any of. I guess I wouldn't mind the children's spirits, but I tend to either repel or the negative spirits don't tend to interact with me very well because of the spirit guides that I have. That I invoke to, protect me when I go to locations. So generally, I don't usually get a whole lot of activity, but I do like to document with, photography and, the written history of a location. And if anything wants to, interact with me, what happens and what activity I get.
I think under normal circumstances, a normal haunted location with nice people. I'm cool with that. I would leave Villisca, and I have told my friends who all get giddy about going, oh, let's go there. No, that's not a place for you. That's, you got to understand, that's a dangerous location.
Yes.
And if you go in and you don't respect that and you don't prepare for it, who knows, you know? I was going to ask you, I know I sent you some pictures. Did I send you the picture of the orb in the attic?
Ooh, you know what?
It's kind of streaking across.
Yeah, let me pull up Facebook Messenger, and I've got the ones with you with Amy and Adam, and then there's, let's see. Okay, is the streak going like in front of a white like pot? I'm guessing that's what
A
it
white
is.
what? Yeah.
A white
pot.
a white like planter's
No.
pot or bucket or something. I'm trying to figure out what it is. Yes, I've got that picture.
Now, okay. Now, this is, I got to be careful here because you can always measure. But if you look, I can make out what could be two eyes and a nose. It would be, as it's streaking, it's on one end.
Okay, so the end farthest from the pot?
I think so. Not the one going up, but the one going down.
Yes.
You know, that angle.
Yeah,
And
I can kind of see a face in it. It looks like eyes, a nose, and a mouth.
Exactly. And kind of an old-timey way. But I got to tell you, getting back to, excuse me, some of the cool stuff that we got. Got a Class A EVP. There's a piano in the house. And one of the investigators is talking. And over there talking is a guy saying, I don't know too much about this piano. And it's like, wow, and it's an old-timey kind of a voice.
Right.
And it's like, wow, that's cool. Trying to think of some, if you go to YouTube, and can I tell you what these are? In case
sure, yes.
Okay. If you go to YouTube, both of my investigation collated material is on there. And it's the first one is Villisca, September 12th, 2015, final edit. The reason it's final edit is when we got back from the first time and I went through and got all that material, it was like, I was so excited that we got so much. I wanted to get it out there for the public as soon as possible. So I put one out, and then I decided, let's go back. One of the investigators had a tour of the house. You can walk, that she walked through and showed the axe marks on the wall from where he raised the axe up and hit the wall. But so I increased the volume, hopefully on some of the EVPs, and then I added the tour. So that one is like 32 minutes. There's one that's 28 minutes as well. I would go with the 32. You can do what you want, but I like the 32-minute one better myself because it's got the walking tour.
Okay.
Then the second investigation is called Villisca, The Return. And I got to think of the date. September 23rd, 2017. So that should get you to those. And you know what? If I'm not mistaken, on Messenger, didn't I send those to you?
I know you sent the photos. Let me pull Messenger back up. And
my thought is, if I did, I'm going from my memory here.
Yes, you
So
did.
that's all.
I have. Yes, I have both of the YouTube or three of the YouTube, because you've got the one for Kindred Spirit too, that you sent. So
Yeah.
yeah, those were higher up in the message.
Did I say it right? Is it September 12th, 2015?
Let me look at the dates. Let's
It'll be
see.
in the title of it. Should be.
Yeah, there. Okay, there's return. The return is September 23rd, 2017, and the first one is September 12th, 2015.
Hey, what do you know? The old guy got it right. There's hope for me yet. Do you have any other questions?
um, no, let's see. I'm scrolling back through just to see if there's anything we missed in the messages that and pictures you sent. Now, you said that you are back into paranormal investigating. Um, have you had any like new encounters or experiences?
Um, I want to be careful here because I don't want to stir up anything. But I think coffee pot made it. My coffee pot made itself one day. That was kind of cool.
Oh.
Yeah, I got up and we had it set up, ready to go, and we had the lid up. Well, the only way for it to work is you put the lid down, and
Right.
then the water runs through. So we got up the next day, and the lid was up, and we had coffee on. It's like, wow, thanks. I think it was my mom, my mother-in-law, just stopping by. I like to think so anyway. Outside of that, walking through some buildings, either dust or orb, I think nothing like Villisca,
Okay.
Just little bits and pieces here and there, maybe. There was one, I'm trying to remember what I was going to tell you. Some of the EVPs that we got were fascinating. And some of them, you can make out that they're children. You can make out a voice, but I can't tell exactly what it said. Second time around, there was one that it sounds like not a fee. It's a whisper. It's like, what? Not a fee? Is that actually what it is being said? So if anybody can figure that out, that's cool. And one thing that I didn't put into the first one, and I got to say on both of the investigations, it was like shooting fish in a barrel for the evidence, as you're going through all the audio.
Uh-huh.
There were still many. It's like, I just wanted the good one. I didn't put in there the whispers interaction between the two entities downstairs, but it was fascinating because you hear us upstairs and you hear them moving around downstairs, and then the broken whispers, like they're talking back and forth. Like, wow, that was cool. But one piece I wish I would have put in that I didn't, it's audio, but it's audio on video. I'm going to the doorway, and it is the second time we were there. And it was the time that I got, threatened. And there is a guy's voice. Don't know who he's, again, he's talking to somebody. You don't know who. And for whatever reason, he says, John does. Like that. John does what? I don't know. But they were talking about me. So, fascinating. Just absolutely fascinating place.
Yeah, it's interesting how they knew your name and were talking about you.
Oh, you bring up a point that I talked to Adam and Amy on this too. Now think this through. And this is what got me wondering if I brought something back. Okay, I got threatened by full name. How did it know my name? I ain't got nothing on there. I don't know. But the voice said, just kill John Worley, to somebody. Well, you and I, we can communicate through the phone, the internet. You know,
Yes.
if I want to send you a message, I just get on there and type something. Do ghosts talk? Well, apparently they do. How far can they talk? I don't know. So does that mean I always have to kind of keep an eye out? I don't know. I remember the story of the Bell Witch. Do you remember that story at all?
Oh, yes.
So there was a guy that rode his horse home. I can't remember how far away he lived from the Bell residence, but the Bell Witch was able to tell him everything he did when he got home. So, you know, stuff like that is where you have to say, leave it alone. If it ain't bothering you, just leave it.
Right.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's always that thrill-seeking adventure. I'm an adventurous guy. And there's always that, you know, it's like looking for a cryptid. You know, it's like, ooh, let's lift this rock up and see what's under there. Well, maybe there's something there that doesn't want you to do that, and it's going to lash out.
Right.
By the way, totally off topic, but you should check out Van Meter. It's right outside of Des Moines.
Yeah, I would like to. If I do come to there, I would love. And I've been invited to be a vendor there at the Van Meter Monster Festival in September. But it's usually when I have a local one here. But last year I came out with a book called Mothman and Other Flying Creatures of the Midwest, and I have an interview with Chad Lewis about the Van Meter. He calls it the Van Meter Visitor. Other people call it the Monster, but I have an interview with him in one of the chapters that's actually on the Van Meter Monster. So I'm very familiar with the cryptid sighting of that.
I'm just fascinated, you know, because I'm into the cryptid thing too. And for me to know here, Van Meter's not but maybe 2 hours from where I live. And you go there, it might be 2.5. But to know that there was a mine there and they chased the creature there just boggles my mind. But then there's so much in the world that we just don't know.
Right. Oh yeah, there's endless possibilities, and if you keep an open mind and you're always looking for the abnormal of normal, then you know there's endless possibilities out there.
Yes, I'm surprised, and I'm going to pick on my lovely wife a little bit. One of the greatest people I've ever known in my life, truly. Good woman. Godly woman. But when it comes to believing in ghosts, she doesn't do it. And she has heard, ironically, bless her heart, she has heard the EVP of me being threatened. She knows what we've lived in the last year and a half. She knows the coffee pot experience. And I'll throw another one out here. One day, we have lights on the stairway, and it's got two switches, one in the bottom and one in the top. Well, my wife was trying to switch it on and off, and it was not doing anything. Neither one of them. So she sent me down to the basement to fix the fuse. So I get down there. Fuses are fine. So I come back upstairs, and this is right around the time of the coffee pot making itself. And so I said, honey, I have no idea what the heck's wrong with this. And I flipped the switch and it went on. Like, really? You know, so, but having experienced everything, she still will not say that she believes in ghosts. But I know she does because she does not want me to ever go back to Villisca.
Well, I can understand her concern on that one.
Yeah. And she would prefer that I don't, do anything anymore. And when Chip gave my wife the message from her mom, they were tight, still are, that was my mom, my mother-in-law. When she said through Chip, right away, first thing she says is, tell your wife that I love her. That was Mom. And my wife, and I both cried when she saw that for the first time. And I saw it for the first time on camera. It was a moment that transcended normal belief. It was the understanding that, yeah, that was Mom. And that was her brother, too. Andy had physical difficulties in life, and he had to have an oxygen tube. And toward the end, what he said to Chip was absolutely right. It was easier for him to die than to live. When you think of all the things that we don't know, we had a little touch of the afterlife that we could put a little closure on. And I needed to hear Mom say, I did nothing wrong, so that was cool.
Well, my condolences on your losses. I understand that from a very deep emotional place. So my condolences, and I feel bad for you that you lost so many people within such a short period of time. And it makes me wonder if maybe there was something to do with the paranormal, especially after you got that EVP. But if Amy and Adam and Chip say that it wasn't, then that takes some stress off of you. So I would dwell on that.
Yeah, Chip. If I can quote Chip, and I think I am almost directly. He said, there's nobody here in this room telling you, saying, you get this. So my brother-in-law and my mother-in-law, no blame whatsoever. They're cool. It was just their time kind of a thing. One thing, we were talking about the internet and ghosts talking to each other. And I did pose that question to Adam and Amy. Can ghosts talk to each other longer? And they couldn't answer that. I suppose there's not enough documented evidence. But that's something I don't want to dwell on either,
Right.
That's, for me, that's where I go, no, I'm not going there. For my sake,
Right, right. Yeah, that peace of mind
Right.
is what's important.
Yes. I have to say that there's no way, shape, and form that I would have ever been able to get all the evidence that we did when we went to Villisca, if not for the U.S. Coastal Service. That is the group that I'm a member of. And since then, when I was Shaggy, one of the investigators, dear friend of mine, pick on her all the time, and she picks on me, jokingly. But that night, I was so much like Shaggy that there was a stairway going from the first floor, and that goes right up to the bedroom of the mom and dad. Well, we are slowly, and doggone it, they always made me go last. It's like, what am I, a sacrificial lamb here? So we're going up the stairs, and there was like a balloon there, and I saw it in the corner of my eye, and the doggone balloon moved. Well, I'm guessing it was air movement, but it startled me. And this was after we got the prank call, so I'm terrified. So I'm literally pushing her up the stairs, and I gave her a bruise, and she won't let me forget that. So it's kind of fun. But, the other investigators were spot on. Very professional, very good, and fearless. Um, one of them, if not both of them, went into the attic all by themselves. And here's a story from the first time. And this involves how we met the killer, so to speak. So the two investigators, at that time there were 4 investigators. So 2 of the 4 are in the attic. The other 2 of us, I was one of them, are in the children's room. To understand that the attic is between the children's room and the parents' room. So they're in the attic. They come out because they hear knocking, and they want to know, hey, were you knocking? Well, no, we weren't knocking. And one of them that was in there in the attic suddenly says, wow, my leg is getting really hot. Well, she had a 9-volt battery in her pocket.
Oh, my goodness.
And yes, and that battery left a welt on her leg. Now, the battery, to be fair, she had a key in her pocket. And to be fair, you can take a 9-volt battery, cross it with a key, and cause a fire.
Yes.
But scientifically, they wanted to reproduce this. Couldn't do it. Use the same battery, same key, nothing. I find it awfully ironic that they heard the knocks, came out. I took it as a personal attack, honestly. I did. And she gets a welt on her leg to the point that she's got to literally, she took her pant leg down to look at it. I mean, that's how hot it got. And she wanted to make sure she was okay, obviously. I held the battery. It was extremely hot. Put it in the bed, and that's part of what you'll see on YouTube, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly. But then, after that, we started interacting with the killer. So I just find it awfully ironic that the knocks, then that, the energy's there, it's negative, boom, he's there. Ask the question, do you like us being here? And audio, you hear the word no. Just stuff like that, It's funny, as I sit here talking to you, how the memories come back,
Right.
You tend to forget all the cool stuff. For me, the coolest was, and I can't remember if I mentioned this earlier. If I didn't, I wish I would have, but I'm going to know. So, on audio, on a video, there's a small video clip in the first time we went. And to me, this is an amazing catch. So the investigators in the attic, sitting there with a ghost meter, and says, can you make this light beep or something like that? And you hear a girl's voice, and it's not the investigator. Although they sound similar, it's not the same. You'll notice, and I could notice it with the waves, on the computer when I'm investigating, collating the evidence.
Right.
And it's a monotone type of voice, and it says one word, leave. It's a girl's voice. We had a lot of EVPs that kind of geared us to leaving the first time around. Don't know why. Certainly the kids were polite, because when I was on the bed and she asked if I would get up, she did say, please, would you please get off my bed? Would you like to play with this? No, I don't want to do that, that kind of thing. My favorite catch outside of that one is just to hear that old-time voice talk about the piano. I'm not too good at this piano or something like that. So if you haven't listened to it or watched the video, use earphones if you need to, but it's there. And certainly you won't need earphones whatsoever to hear the word leave.
Well, I definitely recommend that people go check out those videos, and I will, at least for the YouTube channel, I will include the links to it. Kind of hard to do for the Blog Talk Radio, because I'm actually part of Anchor for the Soul Paranormal Radio Network that's on Blog Talk Radio. So that's up to the podcast editors who put it on for me. Maybe I can include it in the description for them, but definitely go check out those YouTube videos for anybody who's watching or listening.
Or the recap even of the Kindred Spirits episode.
Yes.
Which, if you haven't seen that episode, it was a good one, I think, but I'm kind of partial on that. So I got to ask, because I have friends who would like to hear this interview, how do they listen to this?
Okay, so I always post on social media like Facebook and stuff like that when the podcast interviews go up. So what'll happen is, like this week, I've got I think 10 podcast interviews that I've done. So once I edit them and add in the station ID and stuff like that, and the music intro to the podcast, then I send it to the radio, the Blog Talk radio station that I'm a part of, and every Saturday they post a new episode, and then as soon as the episode is posted on Blog Talk Radio, then about 2 hours later I will post it on the YouTube channel. But I always include links to each one of the podcasts, so they will have the opportunity to listen to it either on YouTube, at my YouTube channel, which is Into the Liminal Abyss, or they will be able to find it on Blog Talk Radio of the station ID of Anchor for the Soul Paranormal Radio Station. But I will post the links on Facebook, and I will definitely send you the links.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to talk with you. I could talk all day long, really, on the topic of Villisca, and there is a wonderful, wonderful documentary. I can't remember what it's called now, but if you Google Villisca documentary, it does not cover anything paranormal. There might be one sentence in it, but it does a wonderful job of talking in length about the whole murder. It goes from the day of the murder to the trial and the suspects, and it even gives you a walkthrough of the house that would have been like it was then. And it's like one of those computer-generated crime scene things you see on TV.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the guy did just a fantastic job. I just wish I could remember what it was called. But I can tell you, when you Google it, the cover of it is going to have like an old-time lantern.
Okay.
And an axe, I believe. Now, interesting story about the reason for the lamps is when the killer went through the house, he didn't want the mirrors to be uncovered. He covered all the mirrors. He covered all the windows. And the thought process, I think, was mirrors have it like a gateway.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so don't know what he was thinking there, but he left the axe in the first floor's bedroom, which had the little girls from next door. He left a slab of bacon in there, which they think he may have used for sexual aid. He was perverted.
Oh.
He, when he destroyed the faces, he covered their faces up with clothing, and they think he used it for a sexual aid as far as the bacon goes, because he posed one of the girls kind of a suggestive pose
Okay.
and lifted up her nightgown. The lantern comes in underneath the bed, I believe, if I remember correctly, underneath the bed of Joe Moore. He removes the lantern glass thingy. I don't know what you call it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay, he removed that, and he put that underneath the bed, like he knew what he was doing. So that comes into play somehow or other, just like covering up the mirrors. Why? Don't know. I understand why he would have pulled all the drapes down, and stuff, because he didn't want people to discover him, I suppose, in his handiwork. And it should be stated, too, sadly, by the time he got to the girls downstairs, there was signs of one of them reaching their arm up to, protect themselves.
Uh-huh.
So they were, at least one of them was awake. And here's my theory. Knowing fully well that there are two entities that seem to be working in conjunction in the house, and would that mean that 8 people are axed to death in a house and nobody woke up?
Yeah, that was that's one of the questions I've always had of somebody must have screamed out or cried out, and I would think that if the walls weren't insulated, somebody must have heard something, and why they didn't flee, unless it was just the fear of the dark and not wanting to leave the room that they were in, thinking that they were safe. I don't understand that, why they just accepted the death.
Yeah, and my for what it's worth, and it's a flimsy theory at best, but let's just go with the fact that what I documented, different voices in the house talking to each other, Buck being stabbed and getting the EVP that says, "We will take care of you." Now, having said that, what's to say there wasn't more than one killer? One took care of the top floor, one took care of the bottom floor. I don't know. Just putting it out there. They have no idea who did it.
Right.
So, just suspects.
But sadly, nobody was ever convicted.
Well, I tell you what, thank you very much for this opportunity just to share my story.
You're welcome.
I cannot say enough good things about Paper Route Productions. They were the team that took me back to the house, and they work in conjunction with Adam and Amy and Chip. Every one of them bent over backwards to make sure that I felt safe. They didn't leave me alone. They told me if I didn't feel comfortable doing this, you don't have to do it. They put me up in a hotel to make sure I was there, because it was a snowstorm and I did not want to risk. I had to drive it's 4 or 5 hours.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't want to chance it and then get back and not be able to be there, so they put me up in a hotel. They had a wonderful person. I hope Casey gets to hear this. Casey was the person that kind of picked me up from the motel and took me to the house. She was wonderful. Really, my heart, their family. What can I say? I guess that's the best way to sum it up. They always will be. I get a kick out of the people, and I will defend them. Adam and Amy and Chip on Twitter. Somebody will occasionally get on there and harp at them like, "Oh, you're so fake, let me tell you." They are not fake. And in the situation of Villisca, they answered every question I had. They also made sure to make sure that I was happy and at peace when this whole thing was done. So someday I hope I can see them again. But if I don't, they know how I.
Well, I'm glad that they did right by you and helped you. It's always nice to hear when the paranormal teams that we see on TV actually are working to help somebody resolve any paranormal issues and not making light of it or dramatizing it out of what actually happened. So it's very refreshing to hear that Adam and Amy and Chip were there for you and helped you through this. So I thank them for that.
If you watch like kindred spirits and how they operate, they don't try to spook it up.
No, they are very down to earth.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just there to help. They are there to be scientific. That's why I reached out to them and nobody else. I could have, but it's like, I'm going to go with the two people I trust, and that's Amy and Adam. And then knowing fully well that occasionally, at that time, now he's a regular on the show, occasionally they would work with Chip Coffey. And I had seen Chip before. And it's like, this guy, I really trust, as a medium goes. So it all came together. And hindsight being, now they're doing this thing, they call it Kindred Spirits Resurrected, where they revisit a case and they update people on, like, how people are doing. Someday, I would think they'll get to the Villisca thing. And all is well in Green, Iowa. All is well. And we're driving on. I work at a hospital, and couldn't be better. So it's amazing how terrible that year was to where it is now.
Well, I'm glad to hear that your life is getting back to normal and that you did survive your experiences with Villisca, Axe Murder House. And I hope that you do go on some more investigations. I know that we're about out of time, but I'd love to have you back on the show in a couple of months, and maybe we can talk about some cryptozoology and maybe some other paranormal locations there in your home state.
Sure, you bet. Be my pleasure.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show today, and I hope that you have a pleasant evening. And I know you said you worked in a hospital, so my respect to you in this time when hospital workers are essential, and it doesn't matter what job you're doing there at the hospital. It's an important one, whether you're the surgeon or you're just putting security detail in. Everybody's important in the medical field right now. So my respect to you for being there for that.
Thank you. We're a team, and the hospital I work with, and my life in general, has always tried to be about mercy and compassion, and the hospital nails it. So all we can do is be there for each other at the end of the day, because that's what life is supposed to be about. So thank you for that. And I'm privileged to work with wonderful people who work from their heart, not just for the dollar.
Right. And that's,
So I look forward to working with you in the future, and we'll see what we can do.
Yes, and definitely going to have you back on. And thank you for the interview today. And please be safe, and I will talk to you soon.
All right. Take care now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.